US President Donald Trump has fired his Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. The decision to sack the nation's top law enforcement officer comes after relations soured over the investigation into Russian meddling in US elections. North America correspondent Zoe Daniel joins us now from Washington. So Zoe, this came out of nowhere. Why was he sacked?
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere, Roz. I think it was likely that it was going to happen after the midterm elections. That said, I think we were all somewhat blindsided by it happening on day one of effectively the second 2 years of the Trump administration. Donald Trump has had a long-standing issue with Jeff Sessions, who recused himself from the Russia probe after it was revealed that he'd had several meetings with the former Russian ambassador to the US. So, as Attorney General, he recused himself from that investigation due to concerns about conflict of interest. Donald Trump felt that that was the wrong call. He said afterwards that he never would have appointed Jeff Sessions to that position if he'd known that he was going to do that, expecting Jeff Sessions to in some way advocate for him in the process of that investigation. He said, for example, Jeff Sessions was scared stiff and missing in action. The concern will be, though, Roz, this happening straight after the midterms, is that this is part of a move by Donald Trump to obstruct justice under that investigation. The person who's been at least temporarily appointed to replace Jeff Sessions is Matthew Whitaker, his chief of staff. He's previously had things to say about the investigation, saying that a replacement, for example, could reduce Bob Mueller's budget to the point that the investigation couldn't proceed, and spoken in the media exploring the process by which Bob Mueller could be sacked. So it's all part of a much broader picture that's very murky still around the Mueller probe. The Democrats already have pushed back on this. Let's take a look.
I find the timing very suspect, number one. But number two, our paramount view is that any attorney general, whether this one or another one, should not be able to interfere with the Mueller investigation in any way.
So this has blindsided lots of people there, Zoe, you were saying.
Well, in the sense that it's happened so quickly after the midterm elections, although it had been foreshadowed that Jeff Sessions would probably go. I mean, I think even some in Donald Trump's party accept that the relationship between the two men had broken down to such a degree that although there were concerns about the potential perception of obstruction of justice if Donald Trump got rid of Jeff Sessions, that there's also the simple fact that the Attorney General and the President just weren't getting on, so that perhaps Jeff Sessions did need to be moved on. I think now, though, what people will be looking at is just who is put permanently in that role, whether it's someone who is perhaps sympathetic to Donald Trump, how that affects the Mueller investigation, and indeed whether the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, who's also been in Donald Trump's sights, is also sacked. He went to the White House causing a flurry this afternoon, but it was apparently a pre-arranged meeting, so he is still in his job for the moment.
OK. Now to the results then of those midterm elections. Zoe, how did the President handle those results in his post-election news conference?
Yeah, so Donald Trump did an extensive news conference today, and one of the things that came up too was the Mueller probe, which will be something that the Democrats will be heavily focused on now that they'll have control in the House. They'll also launch several other investigations, and Donald Trump will be under some pretty serious pressure when he tries to get his remaining policy promises through in the next 2 years. That said, though, Donald Trump is pushing the view that this was a success for the Republicans, and that's not entirely untrue when you consider the fact that at midterm elections the incumbent president's party usually loses about 30 seats in the House, which is roughly what the Democrats have picked up, and would usually lose seats in the Senate, and the Republicans have picked up a few. So Donald Trump pushing on the positive side. Let's take a look.
Last night, the Republican Party defied history to expand our Senate majority while significantly beating expectations in the House for the midterm and midterm year. The 11 candidates we campaigned with during the last week, 9 won last night. This vigorous campaigning stopped the blue wave that they talked about. I don't know if there ever was such a thing, but could have been. If we didn't do the campaigning, probably there could have been.
And Zoe, there was a memorable discussion between the president and a CNN reporter.
Yeah, the president's tone in that clip that you just saw was fairly calm. He went on then to mock Republican candidates who had not embraced him and his policies and had then gone on to lose their seats, essentially saying, well, it serves you right for not embracing me, but also was pressed very hard by several reporters on several issues in relation to his tone during the campaign, particularly on immigration. Jim Acosta, a CNN reporter that the president has history with, the two clash frequently, pushed him very hard on whether he had denigrated people who were seeking help coming towards the US border in the so-called migrant caravan that the president has used as part of his campaign in the lead up to yesterday. Let's take a look at what happened.
I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other
Peter,
question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian
investigation
because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
So
it was pretty testy stuff there, Ros, and I was sitting actually just behind Jim Acosta in that press conference a couple of metres away. It really was extremely tense, almost to the point that it felt like there might be a physical altercation. I'm not sure if you could see in that vision, but at one point Donald Trump actually walked away from the podium as if to physically calm himself. The microphone was then handed from Jim Acosta onto another reporter who defended Jim's record as a journalist, and the press conference moved on.
Incredible scenes. Zoe, thanks.